ගම්මැද්ද සවිය සමිතිය අතහිත දුන්නේ ගම්මැද්ද. නව වසරේ ජනතා අයිතියට.
Newsfirst Newsline with Faraz Shaukat Ali.
And a very good evening to you and welcome to Newsline Zoom. My guest this evening is a member of the NPP and also the JVP, I suppose, the lead partner of the NPP. And he's none other than the legal eagle, Mr. Harshana Nanayakkara. Very good evening to you, Mr. Harshana.
Good evening, Faraz.
Thank you very much for being on Newsline Zoom, which of course we are making under exceptionally challenging circumstances. The country itself is undergoing a very significant challenge in terms of its economy, and we have been so challenged for the last 2 years at least with the onset of the global pandemic CV-19. And of course, before that, we had our very own event horribilis, which is, of course, the Easter bombing attack. And now then, in between all this, there is a foreign crisis, foreign exchange crisis, and many other crises. What would the solution be, Harshana Nanayakkara, for a party that appears to be growing in popularity for one reason or other? What would your solution be?
Well, thank you, Faraz. Like, basically, I mean, it has to be all-encompassing answer. We will not consider ourselves as an alternative. We consider ourselves as the solution. Recently, we published a booklet or a policy document when MPP was launched called Rapid Response. In that, we are addressing the economics, foreign currency crisis, and everything and our solutions. So what I'm able to give you is in a bit of a nutshell. First and foremost, we have to look at our solutions for short-term, mid-term, and long-term. There's no easy way out of this crisis. However, first and foremost, there has to be a genuine acceptance or a genuine investigation as to the crisis we are in, mainly the trade deficit, which has resulted in the current foreign reserves crisis. However, this is not sudden, nor this is just the making of this government. It is a system that we have followed, political corruption and wastage and lack of vision for a couple of decades that brought about this situation. However, Gotabaya Rajapaksa and his government is taking the brunt of it, because when they had opportunity to salvage the situation, to go on another direction with the amazing mandate they got, they simply lost track. They have no vision, no plan. Above all, they're not even sincere, right? During the pandemic, when everybody is fearing death and all. So our proposal, firstly, do a forensic audit of all the projects, figure out what we have to pay back, and then start an economy which grows things, which produces things in order to combat on the long run.
Do you remember?
We have to accept.
Sorry, do you remember, Harshana Nanayakkara, that the Yapalinista government said almost a similar thing to what you just said, that they wanted to do a forensic audit on all these projects, and they stopped these projects, and then of course they ran along, suddenly realizing that the economy had come to a grinding halt. And so when they did do the audits on the different projects and so on, they couldn't really find anything wrong. But then they started asking for money, and then we entered what we now know as the bond scam. But so don't you think that it's counterproductive to stop everything in the process and try and figure it out, when after all the Attorney General's Department would have gone through it, and it's gone through all the motions? And so if there is corruption, it's also built in.
Now, this is why I started my answer by saying the first and the foremost thing for us to do is to establish a political culture, not corrupted. Instead of the parliament being filled up with illicit sand miners, drug lords, and wine stores and of liquor license owners, we have to fill in the parliament with honorable men and women with integrity, which we have enough resources, which we have enough people. The problem with the Yahapalana government was they were not sincere. They protected these people. Even the Attorney General, you are quite correct, went only through the motions. Attorney General is withdrawing indictments. Do we know why? We don't. So we have to establish a political culture to carry out these things. Otherwise, no system is going to survive. And the Yahapalana government was not sincere. That's why they failed.
You say that, but I put it to you that it is the people who have been, for want of a better word, shafted right throughout. Our record is abysmal. In 73 years of being in charge of our own destiny, we only have, and I repeat the word only, we only have a state university capacity of approximately 35,000. It used to be 30,000 for a very long time. Now we have 15,000 in the private sector. And so I mentioned these things to you because I'm coming round to this question, which affects your party. And there is this perception, incorrect perhaps, but there is this perception that your party, the NPP stroke JVP, are not for private education. And surely the government, with its very limited resources, can't really afford to spend any more money on education, even though that's what they ought to be doing.
Correct. Now, that perception is actually wrong because in our policy document, we have put it in black and white that we will not ban private education. We will only regulate and monitor private education establishments, including universities and postgraduate places, in order that they give a better product, that they give a standard education. However, in the long run, we believe on a policy basis that education must be available to all, regardless of the size of their purse, or based on skill and ability. So as a government, if we ever come into power, which we will most probably in time to come, right? Hope so. We will allocate 6% of the GDP to education. That is not to say we are going to ban private education or against private education. This is a wrong perception. So I invite the public, if someone says that we are going to ban private education or anything like that, come and talk to us, not our opponents. We will explain it to you. We have put it into writing. So therefore, we believe the private sector can and should be allowed in the short term to function as they are, subject to being monitored.
And your rapid response booklet must be available on the internet as well, I suppose.
It is. Actually, if they go to npp.lk, you have all the documents and our news items there.
So www.npp, that's November Papa.lk, NPP.
Yes, for us. And our rapid response, as well as more detailed policy documents, are available there in the website.
Just in case anyone wants to read up on it. Now, then there's another issue. Obviously, the people of my vintage, your vintage, and I say a little bit older than us too. My mother, for example, she will be horrified if she was to find out that the JVP may be coming into some form of substantial or significant power in Parliament. I wonder why. Is it because they will go back to the dark days of the 70s and the 80s and remember what your party was up to?
If I may answer that very briefly, there's no reason for us to go back to the 80s or the 70s because we are in 2022, number one. And for the last 32 to 33 years, our party has not even thrown a stone at a dog. Okay.
Right.
However, 88, 89, those events did not happen in isolation. They were a reaction for the curtailing of democracy by the then government, and they were pushed into it. I will not go to details because I won't have the time. But we do not have to go back there unless somebody rolled down the carpet of democracy, which I don't think is the case. However, these days, suddenly there's a talk actually by our adversaries trying to bring memories back of 88, 89. But let me tell you one thing, 88, 89 was not an event that happened in isolation. The party was banned in 1983, saying that they were responsible for the riots. Thereafter, the comrades were being arrested and tortured using the PTA Act. Still, they did not take up weapons, or they were not pushed to take up weapons till about 1987. That's when the famous Dal attack came from India. Even Mahinda Rajapaksa at that time was supporting the movement, saying, what if India invades us? So it is at that time, but unfortunately, they took up weapons. And that is also because JR postponed elections and violated all democratic norms. So therefore, with democracy in full swing now, there's no reason for anyone to return to such a situation.
What would be the state of the free economy under any government where the JVP is a significant partner?
The open economy is a must. Closed economies don't survive. And we do have a plan to give it a human face and regulate it in the best interest of the people, which the private sector will play a role in. So
Mr. Nanayakkara, what about shifting away from this inherent belief amongst the Republic of Sri Lanka that, the state must be the guardian, must be the parent in all these, in their lifetimes? The Sri Lankan people appear to expect and demand that the state be their guardian from birth to death.
This is actually a sort of a colonial mentality as well, because in any developed democracy, people do understand power is actually not with the state, power is with the people. And they only hand over the power to a government for 5 years temporarily to do something that is good. And this guardianship comes because of this dependent economy we have, the dependent system we have, where people are depending on charity and waiting for handouts. So they want to treat like a king or a appachi or a father, guardian. But the reality is, government is nothing but a team of people hired for 5 years to provide some services and results. So I believe the government must play its role in monitoring and regulating for the best interest of the public and the people. But it should not be a father figure to anyone, because we have to develop now, through education.
Let's go for a short break. I'll come back with some statistics, which is quite startling, and it's to do with education. In the meantime, let's take a quick peek at this evening's headlines from the primetime news team at Newsfirst. We'll see you on the other side of the break.
Newsfirst Newsline with Faraz Shaukat Ali.
Is Vimal's secret? Why was Susil Premaganda removed? What is the SLFP's future ambition? What are the people's demands?
ඔබට අවශ්‍ය කයිවාරු විකල්පයක් බොරු කරලා මිනිස්සු අන්දවන විකල්පයක් අවශ්‍ය කියන දේ කරන දේ කියන වැඩ කරන රජයක්.
Long queues for milk powder seen again in Mirihana. These distribute gas cylinders. 3 SJB MPs make proposals to uplift the economy.
මේ තෝරාගත් 12 දිනක් 15 දිනක් අර විශාල ප්‍රතිලාභයක් ලබා දෙන්නද කියන ප්‍රශ්නේ සාධාරණ ප්‍රශ්නයක් අපි ඒක අහනවා. මේ වගේ බැලන්ස්තර වලින් රට විකුණන ඕන දෙයක් කරන්න පුළුවන්. ඒකට අපි එකඟ.
Crocodiles in Dehiwala waters. All this and many more coming your way at 9 to 9.
Newsfirst Newsline with Faraz Shaukat Ali.
Welcome back to Newsline Zoom. My guest this evening is Mr. Harshana Nanayakkara from the NPP, who is also worthy, of course, the JVP is a component member and significant member of. Welcome back, Mr. Nanayakkara, to Newsline Zoom. I just wanted to give you some statistics before I move on to more current affairs. And that is this: approximately 25,000 Sri Lankan students study abroad at an average cost of $25,000 per annum. When you do the sum, it's around $625 million per annum in year one, year two the same, and year three the same. You're looking at around $2 billion at the end of 3 years, just under, thereabouts. Now, it's obviously money that we can't afford as a country. The Hawala deal is obviously doing a roaring business because, you know, the parents who pay any rate of exchange to get their kit and kin fed and educated. But my question really is that this is a direct result of the Sri Lankan legislators not paying enough and sufficient commitment or interest to our education system. Do you agree?
Definitely, for us, our biggest problem is this aspect that you spoke. For our country to develop, I mean, we don't have gold or oil or any other natural resource, but we have a massive population, human resources we have. And developing this human resource, the main component to create a workforce or a decent citizen is education. This is one of the reasons why our party has been advocating 6% of the GDP to be given to education. And one of the reasons in my earlier occasion when I spoke to you, that we want to monitor and regulate private education establishments, not to ban them. Now, we have to prevent the youth from going abroad. They do not go abroad to other universities just to get an education. They feel even if they pass out from local universities here, they have no future here. That's what the country has come to. Look at the passport queues. Those who can study for education will go for fee-paying universities, thereby depriving our country large amounts of foreign exchange, as you have rightly pointed out. And there's another set of youth who will go to Japan or Korea or somewhere just to find a job. Our youth is leaving because they see this country is not stable and steady. So one thing is that we will reform this education sector together with our plans and policies. And I'm sure the private sector will contribute. But in the long run, unless we do an overall handling of the economy properly, so there'll be what I call economic democracy. You and I always speak about democracy in a political sense, but there's a thing called economic democracy also. That means every citizen must be able to contribute to the economy, take part in the economy, not like a few families who are close to the rulers getting all the business opportunities. So we have to create that environment for the youth to be here.
Around 500 to 600 families are leaving Sri Lanka right now and using various sort of methods. So either they're going as the parents and so on and so forth. If they took only 100 million rupees out of their country because they're going of our country because they're going to settle elsewhere, that's around 50. Let's have a look. It's about 50 billion every, just for 500 people. That's a lot of money. The brain drain is so much. And in between all this, we have a reaction from President Gotabaya Rajapaksa, who has decided to sack Mr. Susil Premajayanta for obviously being too open in his observation of the current economic hardships. President Maithripala Sirisena said that another member of parliament had hit 2 greater sixes and nothing's happened to that fellow. So what's going on? Is this the way forward when you sort of sack the people?
Well, this is the beginning of the end, I would say. In this way, why are people leaving, as you said, taking all their money out? The country is breaking up. It's not stable. People know the country is going for a nosedive. So whoever can jump the ship, they're jumping the ship, right? Now, Susil Premajayanta's sacking is only the public face of that crack. It's cracking up. It's cracking up. So this country cannot go forward with this government. They have to dissolve the parliament while they can before streets descend into chaos, because our constitution provides an opportunity for the parliament to do so. So people are leaving because they are fearful. Gases are exploding. No food on the shelves. Food is extremely pricey. they don't see a future for their children in this country. So what my invitation is this: changing the country is a difficult one, but let's change the government. It's far better. So I'm asking people, whoever can stay back, stay back. Because if all the good men and honest men, men with education, leave us, then with whom are we going to rebuild this nation? So my request to the public, don't go, stay back if you can. Work with us, work with the NPP. You don't have to wait. I mean, we can't allow this government to go its full term. If we allow another 2.5 years to go, another 3 years to go, we don't know where the country will end up. Taking to the streets and protesting is also part of democracy. So let's force the parliament to use their powers given under the constitution to dissolve the parliament and get rid of this administration, which, believe me, is far easier than shifting your country. So if you guys go, all the good men and honest men will be still with the wolves. So please stay back and fight with us is my request.
So don't go away. Don't go and spend $25,000 a year on an education. Come and fight your way and study in Sri Lanka, even though there's only 35,000 spaces plus another 15. But
I have to say my
sorry
was not specific to education. Anyone who's going to it's about those who are migrating from the country, leaving this country behind for good. It is them that I requested to stay, not those who are going for education.
But stay for what? To stay so that the ruling, whichever the party is, the ruling party members can do their little deals, ranging from anything and everything, and they can leave. How many of these 225 people can actually publish in any newspaper the value of their assets and their assets and liabilities? How many of them? Why should it be locked away with the speaker or the president? For what? What fatness is that?
Now, I think you and I both agree this government and this system has to change. What I'm telling the people is that we are ready for a system change, and at a ground level, things are changing in an alarming speed. Before April, we can see a lot of things taking place at a ground level, especially the economy. So what I'm saying is this: yes, it's tiring. Yes, it's a difficult job, but this country can be fixed. This system can be changed. As NPP, we are willing to take the heavy load of it, but we cannot do it alone. We need the support of the people. This is the reason why I say, do not go, stay if you can. Not for education, if you can go. We will fight it. But I told you, firstly, the first thing we have to do is to change these corrupt political rulers and their practice. And believe me, we will do it. And not only that, once we get power, we will file whatever action, legal cases necessary. Unlike the Yahapalana government, we'll push them through, recover all the looted money to the public purse. And we will make this country better. We have the commitment. But NPP are no magicians. They can't do it alone. We don't have a magic wand. But we need the people to stay back and fight. Do it for 4 years. I promise you, we'll make a far better country than what we have now. We'll fix it. We will solve it. This is my promise to the people.
Do you think that Anru Kumar Dissanayake and all these others, Sunil Handanetty, Vijita Herat, Nalindra Jayatissa, yourself, do you think all of you will do a collective about U-turn when you have power, and the corruption and so on will be a thing that you've all forgotten about when you get power?
No. For 20 years, the names you mentioned, Anura, Andunnetti, Vijitera, they've been in parliament for well over 20 years. They have demonstrated, not just by rhetoric, they have demonstrated by conduct that they are honest, uncorrupted people. And NPP, even the names you do not know, are people of that nature. We are able to fill in the parliament with people with integrity and honesty, and we have more than capable resource persons who can head a cabinet. We know the people, we have the people. But believe me, we can't do it alone. We can't do it alone. That's why we are inviting the public to rally around us as much as possible, including other civil.
How many people in this country will question, for example, the wealth of the former president, Sirisena? You know, a lifetime in politics and all that is true. But how many of them will question the wealth of his family after his term in office? How many people will question the wealth and the access to wealth, of the former president, the war-winning president, Mahinda Rajapaksa. He is a politician who came from a sleepy little fishing village called Tangol. And yes, okay, he did good. He's been a member of parliament, leader of opposition, minister, prime minister, and president twice. But, you know, his earnings, his legitimate earnings paid for by the people in this country does not in any shape or form come close to the apparent access to wealth that they have. So how many people, what is it in Sri Lanka that prevents us from questioning their actual deeds against their misdeeds? Why are people so frightened or unable to speak about these things openly?
The value system for us, firstly, the value system. If you look at our members in the parliament, Anura included, we have not been fearful of calling a spade a spade. When they do corrupt activities, we even give the check numbers of what the bribes they have received from Chinese companies. If our government to come into power, our first effort will be to use the Money Laundering Act, the law in relation to money laundering, to its best effect. And whoever people have earned money lawfully, they may keep it. Other things we are going to recover for our public purse. To answer the second part of your question, why aren't people questioning? Good, because firstly, during every election, they create a monster. Either it's the war LTT, or the East attack, Muslim fear, or terrorism. So people go to the voting booth, voting place, with a monster created by the media, and they vote based on fear. But for the first time after 1977, people are questioning real problems, economic issues. And also people have a habit. If some fellow comes in a big murk, they are quite happy to go and say congratulations, but they never ask the question, how did you get this murk? So basically our value system is based on tracing money, power and property. But increasingly things are changing at the ground level. I think you will witness that change within the next 3 to 4 months. People are going to do it. And we are going to be there with them when they do it.
I'm going to quote from a foreword written by one Mahinda Rajapaksa, twice president and all that. This is what he wrote. Political analysts have adduced many reasons for SWRD Bandaranaike's action. Some say that it was merely a dog and pony show to attract the masses. And here comes a critical part. After all, arousing religious and racial sentiments remain to this day sure vote-catching tactics. Do you agree?
I would have agreed if you asked me that question 6 months ago, because till 6 months ago, that was where the public was. You can bring in some racial or tactic or some religious tactic. However, now the public, especially that 6.9 million who voted for Gotabaya Rajapaksa, has realized they were hoodwinked, they were misled, because internally we feel close to our religion and culture. So when some attack comes upon that, we become very defensive, and that's what they use it. Not just in the south, they use it in the north, they use it in the east, by all those politicians who have no solution to the country's problems. But now the fact that people are suspecting.
Newsline tends to ask all the hard questions, but they're the obvious ones. So in this last minute, let me ask you, what is your observation as an aspiring politician, as an aspiring legislator, and so on? Do you detect that our ruling party are racist and communists, or are they committed to real democracy?
The current government is not genuine, it's not committed to democracy. It came to power using religious and racial sentiments. However, this government is not alone in that, because we can see some parties from the east as well as the north does it. Remember, they only divide the people so they can roll together. At the top, all they're united. Race, religion has been a sure election winner for everybody. But national people's power will never fall into that. Our job is to stand on the side what is right and truthful and make the truth popular, not to stand on the popular side and win an election. If there's no harmony among races, which these politicians do, we can never go forward. So NPP will stand by its policies, and we call a spade a spade. This government is incapable, racist, and creating conflict. They must go home.
Well, we report, you decide. This has been Newsline Zoom. we've been in conversation with Mr. Harshana Nanayakkara from the NPP. Thank you very much, Harshana Nanayakkara. And that's the way it was on Newsline Zoom this evening. We hope to be back to live broadcasting and the familiar surroundings of our studio soon, with all God's grace, I suppose. And on that note, let's now listen to the primetime news from the Newsfirst team. Young, vibrant, and always on point. Take care, and as always, God bless you.
Newsfirst Newsline with Faraz Shaukat.